A Special Operations Combat Surgeon published a statement a few years ago that started a fight in every firearms forum on the internet. He said, and this is a direct quote, "If I had to choose, I'd take a round from the AK-47 over the M4 any day of the week." A doctor who'd operated on gunshot wounds from both cartridges in combat zones would rather be shot by the bigger bullet. The 7.62x39, the round from the AK, the one everyone assumes hits harder and does more damage. He'd rather take that one than the 5.56. That statement breaks everything the gun community assumes about these two cartridges. The AK round is bigger, heavier, more energy at the muzzle, and a surgeon who's seen what both do to human tissue at close range says he'd rather be hit by it. The reason he gave was simple. At close range, the 5.56 NATO round does something the 7.62 doesn't. It yaws, it tumbles, it fragments inside soft tissue. The bullet enters point first, travels a few inches, becomes unstable, and breaks apart. The jacket separates from the core. The pieces fan out in different directions, each one cutting its own wound channel through muscle and organ tissue. A single 5.56 round can create a wound cavity that looks like it came from a much larger caliber. The 7.62x39 doesn't do that. It punches through. Bigger hole going in, relatively straight path through tissue, exits with most of its mass intact. A cleanish wound that a surgeon can work with. Devastating, absolutely, but predictable. The 5.56 is unpredictable. And in wound ballistics, unpredictable is worse. That's the first thing this debate gets wrong. The smaller bullet is nastier at close range. The bigger bullet is more survivable. If that sounds backwards, it's because the 5.56 versus 7.62 argument has been fought on the wrong terms for 60 years. Now, before anyone in the comments writes a dissertation about how the 7.62 hits harder, let me give you the numbers. Because the 7.62 does hit harder, just not the way you think. 5.56 NATO fires a 5 to 62 grain bullet at roughly 3,100 feet per second. Muzzle energy around 1,275 foot-pounds. 7.62x39 fires a 123 grain bullet at roughly 2,350 feet per second. Muzzle energy around 1,500 foot-pounds. At the muzzle, the 7.62 carries about 225 foot-pounds more energy. That's a real difference. And the energy gap doesn't shrink at distance, it grows. At 300 yards, the 7.62 carries about 39 foot-pounds more than the 5.56. At 400 yards, the gap widens to 160 foot-pounds. By 400 yards, the 7.62 is carrying 558 foot-pounds versus 398 for the 5.56. That's a 40% energy advantage for the bigger, slower round at the distance where energy matters most for hunting and combat effectiveness. The 5.56 bleeds velocity fast because the bullet is light. A 55 grain projectile loses speed through air resistance far more rapidly than a 123 grain projectile. The 7.62 starts slower but retains its energy more efficiently because mass resists deceleration better than velocity compensates for it. The 5.56 shoots flatter. That's true and it matters. At 300 yards, the 5.56 drops about 13 inches. The 7.62 drops about 24 inches. That's a significant trajectory advantage for the 5.56, and it means less holdover, less range estimation error, and an easier shot at distance for the average shooter. So you have two cartridges that are each better at different things. The 5.56 shoots flatter and fragments more violently at close range. The 7.62 carries more energy at every distance and punches deeper through barriers and tissue. If the comparison stopped here, this would be a boring video. It doesn't. Because there are 3 scenarios where these cartridges go head to head, and the results will change how you think about what's in your rifle. Scenario 1. Hunting. The 5.56 is a varmint and predator round. Coyotes, prairie dogs, groundhogs. For those applications, the high velocity and flat trajectory make it surgical. A 55-grain VMAX at 3,200 feet per second will vaporize a prairie dog at 300 yards. For deer-sized game, the 5.56 gets into ethical grey territory. Some states don't even allow it for deer hunting because the bullet is too light to guarantee a clean kill on an animal that can weigh over 200 pounds. The 5.56 can kill a deer. It does kill deer. But marginal hits, bad angles, and shots through heavy brush produce wounded animals that run for hundreds of yards before dying. The bullet doesn't have the mass to break through heavy bone and reach vitals from tough angles. The 7.62x39 is a legitimate medium-game cartridge inside 200 yards. A 123-grain soft point at 2,350 feet per second will cleanly take whitetail, feral hogs, and black bear at distances that match how those animals are actually hunted in thick timber and brush. The heavier bullet holds its path through vegetation better than the light 5.56, which deflects off twigs and branches that the 7.62 pushes through. For hunting, if your game is bigger than a coyote and your shots are under 200 yards, the 7.62 is the more capable round. If you're shooting varmints at 300 plus or need flat trajectory in open country, the 5.56 wins. 2 different tools for 2 different jobs. Scenario 2. Home defense. This is where the comparison gets personal, and where the results are genuinely surprising. American Firearms conducted barrier penetration testing using standard residential construction materials. 2 layers of half-inch drywall with insulation between them, set 20 feet apart to simulate interior walls of a house. The 55-grain M193 5.56 fragmented significantly after the first wall. It tumbled, broke apart, and lost energy rapidly through each subsequent barrier. It still penetrated multiple walls, but the energy dissipation was substantial. The 123-grain 7.62x39 FMJ punched through 4 walls with minimal deformation. Even soft-point hunting loads maintained dangerous energy levels through multiple barriers. Read that again. The 5.56 broke apart going through your walls. The 7.62 sailed through 4 walls and kept going. For home defense inside an apartment, a townhouse, or any structure where family members are in adjacent rooms, the 5.56 is the safer choice. The bullet's tendency to fragment, the same property that makes it so lethal in soft tissue at close range, works in your favor when it hits drywall. It breaks up. It loses energy. It's less likely to kill someone on the other side of a wall. The 7.62 doesn't care about your walls. It was designed by Soviet engineers to penetrate barriers, cover, and light armor. It does that job extremely well. And in a home defense scenario, that's the wrong job. Bear Creek Arsenal tested both calibers in their home defense analysis and arrived at the same conclusion: 5.56 for home defense, 7.62 for everything else. Scenario 3. Ammo economics and availability. Before the Russian ammunition import ban in 2021, 7.62x39 steel case was the cheapest centerfire rifle ammunition in America. 15 to 18 cents per round. You could feed an AK for almost nothing, range days cost less than lunch, that era is over. Since the ban, 7.62x39 prices have risen significantly. Domestic and non-Russian import manufacturers have filled part of the gap, but the cost advantage the 7.62 held for decades has largely evaporated. In 2026, quality 7.62x39 and 5.56 NATO are within about 5 cents per round of each other when comparing similar ammunition types. The price difference that drove an entire generation of AK buyers into the platform no longer exists in any meaningful way. Availability has shifted too. 5.56 NATO is produced by more domestic manufacturers, in more configurations with more bullet weights and designs than 7.62x39. During the shortages of 2020 and 2021, 5.56 was scarce but findable. 7.62x39 disappeared from shelves entirely in some regions because the primary supply chain ran through Russia. If your rifle purchase depends on long-term ammunition security, the 5.56 has the deeper bench. More manufacturers, more domestic production, more variety in bullet designs for specific applications. The 7.62 ecosystem is recovering, but it is still thinner than it was before 2021 and may never fully return to pre-ban depth. Now, the verdict. And I'm going to say something that the AR guys and the AK guys are both going to hate. These two cartridges were designed for different wars. The 7.62x39 was designed in the Soviet Union in the 1940s for conscript armies fighting in close terrain. Forests, cities, trenches, ranges under 300 meters. The doctrine was simple. Give every soldier a rifle that hits hard at the distances where wars are actually fought, feeds reliably in mud, sand, and ice, and uses a cartridge heavy enough to punch through cover. The 7.62 was never designed for precision at distance. It was designed for volume of fire at close range against massed infantry. The 5.56 NATO was designed in the United States in the 1960s for professional volunteer military fighting at varied ranges. The doctrine was different. Lighter ammunition means more rounds per soldier, flatter trajectory means better hit probability at range, lower recoil means faster follow-up shots, and the wounding mechanism, fragmentation at velocity, was designed to take combatants out of the fight immediately at close range while still being effective at 500 meters. One was built for the brawl, the other was built for the surgical strike. And comparing them as if they're trying to do the same job is the industry has been selling you since the Cold War. If you want a rifle for brush hunting, ranch defense, or close-range work where penetration through barriers matters more than trajectory, the 7.62x39 is the better cartridge. Load it with quality soft points, keep your shots under 200 yards, and it will outperform the 5.56 in that role every time. If you want a rifle for home defense, long-range accuracy, varmint hunting, or any application where trajectory, ammunition variety, and reduced over-penetration matter, the 5.56 is the better cartridge. The ecosystem built around it is deeper, the ballistic options are wider, and the fragmentation characteristics make it safer inside a structure. If you want one rifle that does everything adequately and nothing perfectly, buy whichever platform you shoot better. Because at the distances and scenarios where 90% of civilian rifle use actually happens, inside 200 yards at the range, in the deer stand, or defending your home, the difference between these two cartridges is smaller than the difference between a shooter who practices and one who doesn't. The biggest lie in the rifle industry is that this is an AR versus AK debate. it never was. It's a cartridge debate, and the cartridges were designed for two different philosophies of warfare. Asking which one is better is asking whether a hammer is better than a wrench. Depends on what you're building. Tell me what caliber matchup you want to see next. I'll make the one with the most requests.